While everyone's busy going crazy over Arsenal and City and Brighton and all these kind of things, I think it's best to just take a little step back. Arsenal fans, City fans, Brighton fans, just take a look at where you are and overall just acknowledge this wasn't really the day that the league was won or lost. Though, when things begin to feel a little bit beyond you, when the homework feels slightly too late to be handing in this far back, when you feel like, oh, it's just a little bit too far to get that PB that you're looking for, or it just begins to frustrate you, that is what Arsenal fans are feeling right now. That feeling of falling slightly short, even if realistically they haven't. And that's kind of what I wanted to explore in this video. How far short of Arsenal really fallen of anything? If they were the only team this season to be pushing Man City, the only team to be doing anything even vaguely meaningful near Man City this season. And they've led the league, as the famous tweet now goes, for the majority of the season, because they've been so brilliant. But look at that. Look at why City are coming good at just this time. Look at why when you run a marathon, it's not just about running exactly the same marathon all the way through. There are different techniques at different points in that marathon. And maybe when you go through the wall, as they put it in marathons, you don't just go through one wall, you go through 2, 3 during a marathon. Some people might go through more, some people might go through less. But the point is you're going to hit a wall at some point and you have to find a way through that wall. City and Pep Guardiola are the problem-solving people who find their ways through these walls. Now, other people have matched them in previous years. Arsenal have very much matched them almost stride for stride in this year's marathon. But there's different aspects to that, right? Sometimes in the marathon, you're definitely competing against other people. If you're in the professional side, or if you're in a team or whatever it is, or if you're part of a running group, you want to set the best time you can. But most of the time it's you versus you. And that's where Arsenal have got to work out where they go next. What do they burn off? What do they keep? What changes within the Arsenal side? What personnel changes are there? And how did they lose the league? Predominantly, I think the one answer that most people give would be losing Saliba, not having any adequate backup to him, even though Carvalho and Holding really did try their best. Why is there a siren everyone a moment? And with that, the formation going, teams finding they are more susceptible to X. Since the World Cup, 22 games roughly, in the Premier League, Arsenal have conceded 2+ goals in 10 of those games. Thank you, Sam, for that stat. But that says a lot, right? Like, Arsenal beforehand were much more sturdy. They didn't look nearly as nervous as they did against Brighton today. And they were a different team. They felt different. They felt like there was more stability. And that isn't, by the way, just down to one guy leaving the side, though Partey maybe had a little bit more freedom going forward when there was 2 centre-backs in the team who could actually do something. Maybe other people in the side felt there was another passing option. Maybe now there isn't that same option. And at the same time, I really want to highlight the loss of Tomiyasu towards the end of the season, right? Before that, they were really just rotating very effectively on that side with White and Tomiyasu. And that really worked a lot within games. It confused back lines. Their approach was different. One was kind of slightly more attacking. One was slightly more on the back foot, or not on the back foot, but more like the tackling aspect of that was better from them. And I like the switch up. Mikel Arteta would switch units almost within the games. And he's tried to maximise his substitute since. I like the substitute of Nketiah. I like the substitute when they change someone on for one of those attacking, like 8s or 10s, whatever you want to call them, in that kind of 6. And I like the shift of formation that Arsenal have tried. They had that 3-2-5, it then went to a 2-2-6 or something around that, and at times it even went to like a 1-2-7 or whatever you wanted to call it. It was so attacking because they needed to be. The old saying of it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all is never more pertinent than when you love and then lose. But when you've hoped and then lost, when you've had that, it's better to have been in a title race and lost than never to have hoped to be in a title race at all. Because, I get it, that's not me saying that you have to be in a title race in order to enjoy football. That's just me saying, like, the thrill of that title race, right? That is your goal that season. It's like getting in a relationship, right? And you're like, hey, here's my goal. I just kind of want to have some casual dates and we'll see where it goes. And suddenly you are in love. You are not addicted, but you are sort of encapsulated by this person. You are enraptured by everything that they represent. That is what it is like to be within a title race. You love these teams. These guys you have an emotional bond with that you just Only you can feel it, right? And I'm sure there's some of your friends that go, hey, what is it with this guy or this girl that you particularly love, huh? Sometimes you can't explain it. Sometimes you just sit back and just Joaquin Phoenix yourself away. You know, you just sort of like, hey, you know, I don't know, I just like her. I just like it. Like, that is it, right? And I had the same with Jurgen Klopp. You're having the same with Mikel Arteta now. It doesn't matter what other people say. It doesn't matter what other people think. It doesn't matter what they want to throw in or say. You've had a bonding session with these guys. And that is like, that's, even whether you win it, lose it, draw it, whatever it is, to have that, what these people have given you this season with Arsenal, considering Arsenal's most recent history, that was gone from so many of our memories. Like, it was so etched in our memories what Arsenal represented in recent years, the Bantasaurus they were. That's just gone. That's so meaningful that people take you seriously again, that they find meaning in what it is that your team and your club represent, and it isn't just, you know, let's laugh at these guys. And then it's the bonding with the players, it's the bond with the manager, it's the belief, it's all these things which are so far beyond stats that you can give or any of those kind of things. It's not me saying stats are useless, I don't think they are, I think they're perfectly useful, but that's not what I'm trying to quantify here. You competed with one of the greats. And it's the promise and the potential of what is to come that is just as exciting as what happened this season, though maybe a little deflated at times, and maybe immediately in the aftermath it definitely is. I would like to say you now know how Liverpool fans felt, and I got it from Arsenal fans for years that I was deluded or whatever it was that I was. You now know that feeling, and I think we've slightly bonded over that this year. And I'll be honest, like, you know, I've struggled recently with this channel because it's been really... nobody cares what Laurence has to say, right? That's half of it. And why would they? Like, I was always around people who had better things to say. I was meant to be the person to throw to them. But I've really enjoyed covering Arsenal this year. I've really enjoyed that. And I got invested. And to an extent, it's been, people are like, oh, you hate Man City. No, I'm really invested in Arsenal. And that's been really, I don't know, I won't support Arsenal because I don't. But I really liked your journey this year. That's meaningful, isn't it? Like, it's not a title. There's a memory. You die with those, you know? Can't take the titles with you. Start of the season, the energy, the attacking meta, the football meta was with Arsenal at that time, right? They'd had a fantastic preseason. They looked so dominant. You know, the team were going around and telling certain journalists, I really think we are going to do something this year. The expectation, by the way, was top four. Not even that they would even come that far in a title race. Not even that they would even push Man City this far. But look at that. That shows what Mikel Arteta and this team are capable of. It's not like they've fallen drastically short. There's 3 games left for City, 2 games left for Arsenal when they've really given up the ghost. And frankly, they've not even really done that yet because mathematically, this is still on. But we know previous hurdles, previous walls they had to get through were not necessarily gotten through, and that's frustrated Arsenal fans, right? Now, within that, there are things that, like I said, you need to burn off, you need to change, you need to make a difference for next season. But the fact that Arsenal so drastically overachieved means I don't really think that we're in any position to analyse them, or at least in a position to analyse them for what they need to do next year to continue going like this, right? Like, to an extent, this was a massive overachievement to Arsenal. Phase ahead of phase ahead of phase. They were phase 3 when they're meant to be, this was more like phase 4 or phase 5. And maybe to an extent, they showed their hand a little bit early. They showed how powerful they are. Maybe other people are going to consider them differently now in the transfer market. Maybe City, if they would sell to them this year, wouldn't do it in the same way. But that's what's interesting about this Arsenal team, right? If they're ahead of the curve, if they are achieving and they are going out there and doing something special, then what do they do next? They have to change certain personnel. They have to find more strength and depth within this squad. And to an extent, I think, you know, a 3-0 undressing, kind of dressing down at home, I guess, from Brighton shows how the football meta has changed since the start of the season, right? At the start of the season, that was Graham Potter. At the end of the season, that's De Zerbi. The football meta is now more with him than anyone else. You could see how confident this Brighton team were. These aren't all inherent things that just stick with a side. Confidence ebbs and flows. It comes and goes from certain squads and teams. And that is what's happening with Arsenal right now. They look tired. They look slightly worn out. They look a little off it. And you can't say that that's always been the case this season. You can't say, well, they're returning to where they're meant to be. Where are Arsenal meant to be? There are people right now lording it over Arsenal. I'm sure that Jason Cundy is doing his incredible have you seen or whatever it is. And believe me, that's an incredible bit, Jason. But most of the people you list, we've seen them very recently, mate. I don't know if you have some sort of sight issue, but overall, you're not that funny. And I say that as someone who's not that funny. Anyway, the point is, with this Arsenal side, there is still plenty of room to go. And the toxic ways within which people try to analyse this team undermine what it is that Arsenal have achieved this season. And that is the whole goal of it, right? Undermine what it is that Mikel Arteta and Arsenal have achieved. Why? Because then we can all laugh at Arsenal. Then we can all go, oh, well, back to normal Arsenal go. Arsenal wrote their own narrative this season. Arsenal wrote their own story, and no one else was creative or willing enough to try to even look at Arsenal in that light until very late on. There are a couple of people who are calling it. There are a couple of people who are saying they saw something special from Arteta and those other guys. But you can see at this point that Arsenal know there are changes coming. You can see the squad are slightly, I don't know, how can I put it? Like they're slightly rough around the edges. There are some nasty tackles going in. There's a bit of frustration. You can see that they expect a lot. And at the same time, they look quite wet around the ears sometimes. To me, it's strange watching them just be so open at the back. The Cavill one, when he goes down, can you imagine Saliba doing that? Can you imagine Gabriel? Maybe you can imagine one of the two doing that, but probably not. Those two are being compared to really great centre-backs at the start of the season. At the same time, I think the frustration comes with the fact that they know there isn't enough strength in depth. They know how good City are, and City will get their own video, they'll get their own credit. Arsenal will build on this. They will buy well, they will bring in a couple of key players into this squad, and I think even just one superstar or kind of, how can I put it, like billboard signing this summer will make a difference to Arsenal. They might have to make two, because I think they might lose one, maybe one player probably in this off season, just purely due to legal reasons, but we don't know that. And they will need someone else in that position. Not having El Neni there, I think has made them suffer, but I think they tried to fill that with Jorginho. It's not quite worked. I've got to admit, I love the signing of Trossard, but, you know, that element of surprise, is that now changing? Has he lost the impetus? Is he still on the front foot? He probably is if he starts next season in the same way. I can see him doing really well in pre-season and kicking on from there. Odegaard looks a little bit tired. You've got to admit there was kind of like a weird pass towards the end when it like looped up for the second goal. Not necessarily Odegaard's fault at all, in fact. But the point is there are plenty of people in that midfield who are now just looking a little bit tired, a little bit leggy. You know, they look willing, but that doesn't mean that their body can do what they want to do. And I think overall, Arteta is just slightly feeling the fatigue. He's slightly feeling it's not the pressure. It's not any of these toxic things that people want to put on them. It's just purely that this side are tired at this point. And that must be so frustrating for this Arsenal team, because this feels and will be framed as a failure in a sense. Not finishing first is always framed as a failure. Well done. But they finish within the top four, they get into the Champions League, they will definitely convince other people to come to the club this season, because they'll look and they'll go, hey, maybe I can do a bit of that, maybe I can be involved in a bit of that. As far as I'm concerned, it's job done for Arsenal, because the project continues. The job would not have been done if the project did not continue. The job would have been, you would have fallen short if that was the case. So, congratulations, Mikel Arteta. Congratulations, Arsenal. You pushed this Man City side this season. You pushed possibly one of the best Man City sides this season. And within that, even though they look weak at certain times, even though they look quite sort of as if they were still trying to click, even though they looked a little bit short, it was unusual. But they've clicked in the end and looked fantastic. I don't see City losing 3 out of 3 or even 2 of these games in the last 2. I think they win the last couple, and it just puts it beyond Arsenal. But let's not let any of that cloud the fact that we enjoyed this Arsenal team this year. They have been exceptional at times. They've ripped other teams apart. They need the edge. They need someone to come in and give them just a little bit, you know, we're savvy, we're wily, we're going to do the nasty stuff. It's not about staying down, it's about getting up and fighting. And as willing as they've looked to do that, they haven't quite gotten there this year. And let's be honest, right? Like, you saw this a little bit coming a mile off. Like, I mean, I guess I always held out hope, and I always held out this like, hey, maybe they will do something. But when you can kind of anticipate it, you make peace with it. And maybe it will flare up during Man City's title celebrations or whatever, between all 10 of them. It's a joke, relax. But I don't know. It's taken the edge off it a little bit, hasn't it? It's taken the edge off that you competed. I like that. All great teams have moments where they sort of crash out, or, you know, they get badly beaten or whatever it is. Someone works them out. They've been worked out for quite a while now, this Arsenal side, and De Zerbi is a fantastic manager in all these aspects of the game, and especially in terms of working people out and those kind of things. So there is all of that. And I think you now know what it's like to be one of these top sides that competes and gets bantered off for that, rather than being a banter club. Being part of that group is way better than being part of the other group. So keep that. Hold that. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's good that people don't want you, you know, that they're going to celebrate on this 3-0 win. It's kind of a good thing for this Arsenal team that happens, especially at this point in the season, especially remember maybe it was a little bit beyond you anyway. I know it's a little bit humiliating, but it's one of those things that sticks in your mind, all these kind of things. These are all narrative tools, if you like, to use next season. And I guarantee you, if Arsenal compete again, or when they compete again, there'll be lots of people going, oh, was it that moment? Was that the moment? Do you remember the 3-0? So, Arsenal, I salute you. Arsenal fans, I certainly salute you for continuing supporting this time, even though there is this slightly sort of galling, gutting thing. You're back in the Champions League next year. You're still well ahead of everyone else. I guess the real question from me is, if they didn't win it this year, how realistic is that they will win it in years to come because of the amount of competition in the league? Can they challenge next year? And challenging isn't probably enough. When do they win this? What is the next goal for Arsenal? Is the next goal to continue this? Is the next goal to refresh the squad a little bit? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll be down in the comments. I'll be doing loads more Arsenal videos from here on out, but I look forward to hearing your guys' opinion and what it is that you think will change, should change, and has changed at Arsenal this year. It's not just been formation, it's not just been mentality, it's not just been meta, it's all these things. There's lots of other things to come. I'd love to hear your comments in the comments below. Much love, I'll see you in a while. Much love.